Well, it is 8:33 this morning and we are on your side. And buying a home, it's exciting, but once the keys are in your hand, the real work, it begins. From protecting yourself legally to making sure your space is actually safe and move-in ready, there are a few must-do steps new homeowners often overlook. Joining me now is Realtor Alana Grant to walk us through what you should handle right away, from changing your legal address to securing your home to checking on safety devices and even deep cleaning your space. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to talk about is saving documents. Well, first off, I just want to talk about when you close on your home.
Yes.
What for homeowners? I've never purchased a home before.
Okay, we'll work on
that. So what is that like when you finally close on that home, of all the stress that you've had to go through and everything? Kind of just tell us what you see.
So I work with a range of buyers over my career, and one thing that I could say is a buyer is never like enthusiastic or excited until I am handing them the keys because of their nerves. And for a lot of people, it's the most money you'll ever spend at one time. And so it's something that you're excited to do, but also anxious to do. And so when we close, it's always at an attorney's office, and the attorney kind of goes over all the legal documents that you have to sign before the property is transferred from one person to the other. And so that's the first actual closing event.
Absolutely. And when you talk about those documents, talk about the importance of actually saving those documents just in case you have to make some changes or do anything like that.
It's really important. Most of the closing attorneys that I work with, they actually give you a flash drive that has the documents that you signed and that the seller signed, and they're all kind of just in one spot. But the reason that they do that is because you need it for several things. The main thing you need it for is for taxes. So in South Carolina, and I am not an attorney, let me make that disclosure, but I've sat in so many closings where I've heard every attorney say this almost verbatim. In South Carolina, the state automatically charges you a 6% tax rate as an investor. But if you want the residential tax rate, if this is going to be your primary home, you can get a 4% tax rate. However, you have to file for it. And so having your deed is really important, but they file the deed the day of closing. And so there's normally a 4 to 6 week kind of delay before you have your legal deed. And so I always tell my clients to put that date in your calendar, make sure that you're on the lookout for that in the mail or wherever you've requested to have it sent, so that you can have that. And that's really important because sometimes people forget to do it. And then at the end of the year, they get this large tax bill that they did not account for. And so that is the main reason why I encourage people to save their documents. But also, you needed to change your address on your license. You needed to transfer utilities, kind of more immediate things as well.
And I want to talk about, because it was something that you said when you said taxes. Obviously, we're at the beginning of the year, and I'm pretty sure there are some first-time home buyers that are watching this right now. Kind of correlate the two with buying a house and then filing your taxes. What are the benefits, the pros, the cons, and things like that?
Absolutely. And so I always recommend that people keep this documentation even going into the next year, because if you, whoever your tax preparer is, they're normally going to ask you if you made that purchase, because sometimes you can get some kinds of benefits for that, for having and for owning a home. And so I recommend, again, keep those documents, but also I would say if you have a will or a trust, which I do recommend people have as well, that you have that legal documentation so that you could submit the house in that as well.
And for those first-time home buyers, or maybe even folks who have already purchased their home, I want you to explain the homestead exemption and how important it is to apply for that.
So typically what happens is, if you have about, let's say that there are several different kind of ways that you can do this. So the attorney, like I said, they explain everything at closing. When you're older, sometimes you get a little bit more benefits for purchasing a home at a later age. But I always recommend that, again, you take all of that information to your tax preparer and that they help guide you through that process in concert with your attorney. You want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And I encourage people to ask the questions until they understand. And so sometimes, folks will say, the attorney will go over everything. And, I used to be a teacher, so I could tell when somebody is just kind of shaking an eye in their head, or if they really understood. Absolutely. And so, we always kind of just check for understanding, because what's difficult to understand about taxes is that they're always evolving. And so the information that I share today may not be relevant by the time somebody watches this clip online. And so we want to make sure that people are staying up to date with that, but that they ask those specific questions in the specific time frame that they need it.
And something that I want to touch on, and obviously, like I told you, I've never purchased a home. This is all apartment.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I think I left something in my apartment after I had already moved out. The year had started, someone else had moved in, and I just said to myself, let me just try my key to see if the door still unlocks. And it unlocked. So when you're purchasing a home, talk about the importance of just changing your lock.
It is the second thing that you do. When you leave closing, you go celebrate and then go change your locks. Because, like you said, like the seller normally gives you all the keys that they have being the operative word there at closing, but you never know who made a copy of their key or anything like that, or if they never changed the keys from the time from when they purchased the home. And so I always recommend, even on new construction, that you go get your locks changed so that you know that your home is secure and that you know everyone who has access to it.
And when we talk about adding new things to the house that you just purchased, we want to talk about those smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors as well, because I know we hear that beep a lot.
Yep.
And we kind of just ignore it. So kind of talk about the importance of changing that, especially as we have some very cold temperatures coming in this weekend.
No, it's really important because we get home inspections in the middle of the transaction. And normally a home inspector will indicate, if the batteries need to be changed on a smoke detector or carbon monoxide detector, or even if the alarm is functioning sometimes. I tell people to make sure that you have fresh batteries and all those things, because when you're moving, there's so many things happening that it kind of just gets put down the to-do list. But in case of emergency, you don't want to remember then that I should have put batteries in the smoke detector or in the carbon monoxide detector. So I always recommend that you prioritize the keys, prioritize the safety and security of your home.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about deep cleaning.
Yes.
Especially when you purchase, like I know people should deep clean when they purchase like a pre-owned home, but those new homes as well, it has like a lot of sawdust.
Yes.
Some constructors, they let their dogs through. Ask me how I know, because I saw it. This year, actually, I was watching these constructing crews. They were building this home and the dogs were just going in and out of the home.
Yeah.
And the homeowner, I'm pretty sure, had no idea. So talk about the importance of doing that as well.
So a lot of people will say, okay, the home looks clean because it's new. But just like you said, the sawdust, the foot traffic, you got to remember the people who are building the house, they're out in the mud every day, and then they come track through the house. Most builders will say, hey, we got the house clean, and that's great. But I recommend, clean is such a spectrum to folks. I recommend that you go in and you clean the home, or you have it cleaned. It's also a really good way to get to know your new property. When you are shopping for a home, you normally see the house like 2 or 3 times in the entire transaction. And so going through and cleaning it can really get you familiar with all the different, corners in the home and different things like that. And it's a really good segue into making sure that you're maintaining the home. Like, we put a lot of focus on getting the mortgage, but the maintenance makes a really big difference. And so I recommend not just the cleaning, but we talked about the home inspection report earlier. I have a home inspector who says that they have clients who come in and get a home inspection done on their home even after they've closed every couple years, so that they can go through and continue to maintain the home. A lot of times what we'll think is that, okay, we have a brand new home, I won't even think about this HVAC unit for the next 15 years, but it needs a tune-up.
Right.
And you don't have an agent telling you, 5 years in, hey, have you checked on your HVAC? But what you don't want is for something as simple as pine straw or just low maintenance to take out a $10,000 unit. And so those home inspection reports kind of keep your mind aligned to what it takes to maintain the home.
Absolutely.
And I didn't give you this point, but it's a bonus. Enjoy the home. Enjoy.
Absolutely.
Mortgages
You're paying
cost
for it.
a lot. Enjoy your mortgage. And some people, I always recommend a housewarming or something to just kind of celebrate. It's hard to get a house these days.
It is.
And so you want to be able to celebrate that moment.
And when you talk about, the difficulties of getting a house, what are some of the misconceptions that people have when buying a house that you've seen?
The first one is perfect credit. People believe that they have to have the perfect credit score and no debt and a ton of income, and none of that is true. The internet has such broad advice, and we give broad advice, agents and lenders, when we're just talking generally to people, because there's such a range of financial profiles. I always recommend talk to the lender, talk to the realtor, and fill out the application so that they can give you very specific advice to your situation. They could tell you the best time, they could tell you the best price range. And realtors, we're real experts on the market. We can tell you the best kind of neighborhoods that you would prefer to live in based off of your lifestyle. And so I always recommend to just fill out that application and be your own myth buster.
And I want to talk about also the different grants and things that are out there for first home time buyers. There's a plethora of them.
There are. In South Carolina, there's South Carolina Housing. We use that when we purchased our first home here, where depending on your income and your family limit, you can get, at the time it was like $7,500 towards down payment closing cost assistance. But that number has changed since then, and the income limits have changed since then because of inflation. And so there's that program. The city of Columbia has a program that they use. Some certain lenders have their own independent programs. And then there's also programs for certain areas in the Midlands and beyond, where if you want to live, within this zip code, we can find you some extra money to go towards your down payment closing costs. And so I recommend, like I said, you got to talk to people, because that's money that you can save. Some of it is forgivable, and it's really forgivable. Not like how they say,
see it again.
Yes,
I don't want to see it again.
You won't see it again. It's really forgivable after you stay in the home for a few years. And then some of it is like a repayable, but a small repayable loan. So you might get a $10,000 down payment assistance, but only pay like maybe $50 or so a month until the life of the loan is over.
Absolutely. And my last question for you, I only know about this because I read about a story about it where these two college friends, they purchased a home together, and they ended up renting it out, and that kind of paid the mortgage for it. And it said like a lot of millennials were doing this. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea. It's an investment property, and the best time to buy is always yesterday. And so if I bought a home when I was in college, it would probably have tripled its value by now. And, unfortunately, for people who are paying rent, you are paying somebody's mortgage. And normally it's plus extra tax. And so I've seen investors, their mortgage might be $1,000. They charge their tenant $1,500 to cover everything that they might need and to be able to get a profit. And so I recommend that people go into investment, because property will always appreciate.
Absolutely. Now, I know that I said that was my last question, but homeowners insurance, I want to talk about that as well, because we do know this weekend we are having some crazy weather come into town. How important is it right now that folks are looking at all of their documents and making sure that all of their T's are crossed and dots, or the I's are dots? Talk about homeowners insurance and maybe some ins and outs of that most people don't know about.
So it's funny that you say that, because I have a client right now who's shopping for home insurance. And one of the things that I recommend is, one, you have to have your home insurance policy before you close. It is activated the day that you close when you are using a bank. If you're buying a home cash, you have to get that independently. That is a document that you want to always have handy, especially if something happens. But the other thing that I will say is, who holds your policy? You have the ability, just like you shop for a realtor and a closing attorney, you have the ability to shop for a home insurance company. Sometimes I recommend with going who has your car insurance, because they can give you a bundle deal, or going with who has your life insurance or something like that, and getting a bundle deal so that you can have a reduced rate. But it's always a good idea to look over it. I'll share a personal story. I bought my first home in Virginia when I was 24 or 25, and I had a house fire 6 months into owning the home. And so I was a nationwide client at the time, and I had to use my insurance policy, and I was grateful that I had that policy, and that I got a policy that covered enough of what it would cost to rebuild my entire home, which we actually had to do.
Absolutely. Well, Alana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And if you guys want a full breakdown of everything that we discussed this morning, we're going to place this story on our website, WLTX.com, so you can go there and get all the information that you need.